All right, welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a closer look at something that pretty much impacts everybody out there, and that's your rental lease. You know, you see that price listed, and you kind of think, well, that's that, right?
Yeah, a lot of folks...
It's got to be unchangeable.
A lot of people think that. You know, they just figure they have to take what the landlord says, and there's nothing they can do about it. But...
Right. But you know what? Turns out, more often than not, it isn't.
Exactly. There's actually a surprising amount of room to work things out and maybe get a better deal for yourself.
That's what we're diving into today. We want to give you the tools to really negotiate your next lease effectively. And we're not just talking about like haggling over the monthly rent.
Right.
We want to look at all the different things you can try to get better terms overall.
Absolutely. And to help us get there, we've dug into a whole bunch of resources. You know, we've got this really helpful renter's guide to negotiating your lease. There's a great FAQ that goes with it. There's even a study guide to test your knowledge. And then there's this article, How to Negotiate Your Rent.
It's like having a whole arsenal of information. No matter if you're renting for the first time or you've been doing it for years, there's something in here for you. So let's get right to it. The first thing we need to tackle is this idea that the rent price, the one you see listed, that's the only option.
Yeah, that's a big one. We call that the myth of the fixed price. So many people just assume, okay, that's the price, end of story. But what we've found is that a lot of times landlords, they actually build in some flexibility, like a little buffer.
A buffer, huh? So what's the logic there? Why would they do that?
Well, think about it from their side. They have to account for all sorts of things. Maybe the place stays empty for a while. Maybe somebody's late with rent, just things that could come up.
Thanks, Sam.
So they add this margin, this buffer, and that's where you have some room to negotiate.
Oh, okay. So it's not always like a take it or leave it kind of deal.
Right. And the article, How to Negotiate Your Rent, it actually says, it's easy to assume the posted price of an apartment is the price of the apartment, end of story. But guess what? That's not the case. Negotiating rent is common, and it's a smart way to make a great rental fit into your budget.
That's kind of reassuring. And it's not just about getting that monthly rent down, right?
Yeah.
The renter's guide itself, it talks about looking beyond just that one number.
For sure. The guide really encourages you to think about all the different areas where you might be able to negotiate, not just the rent, but maybe the security deposit, the length of the lease, things like that.
Gotcha. So we know the initial price might not be the final word, but where do you even begin? It can feel a little overwhelming if you've never done it before.
I hear ya. And that's where research, doing your homework, becomes so important. It's your secret weapon in any negotiation, and renting is no different.
Research, okay. But what kind of research are we talking about exactly?
The main thing is to understand the rental market in your area. The sources we looked at, they all stressed how important it is to research comparable places. Look for apartments that are similar in size, have the same kind of amenities, are located nearby. This isn't just about finding something cheaper. It's about knowing what's fair.
So you can say, hey, I've seen other apartments like this going for this much.
Exactly. And don't stop at just looking at the neighborhood as a whole. You got to really analyze the specific place you're interested in. Think about where it is exactly. Is it right next to a busy street? How easy is it to get to public transit? What about the size? Are the appliances new? Is there parking?
Right.
And this is important. Take a close look at the condition of the place. Is it run down? Are things broken?
Yeah, if it looks like it hasn't been updated in years, that should factor into the price. So how does all this research help when you're actually talking to the landlord?
It gives you leverage. See, you're not just asking for a lower price because you feel like it. The How to Negotiate Your Rent article, it says, a good argument for lowering rent is that other places in the area have more to offer for the same or lower rent. You're coming in with data, you're showing you know what you're talking about.
It's not just about asking for a favor, you're making a case.
Exactly. Now, it's not just about the place on the market, though. There's also you, the tenant. You bring something to the table, too,
Interesting. So how do you show a landlord that you're a good tenant, someone they'd want to rent to?
Reliability is huge. They want someone who's going to pay their rent on time, take care of the place, not cause a bunch of problems. So you want to highlight your good rental history. If you always paid on time, great. Show them proof. Talk about how you took care of your previous apartments.
Right.
And those references from past landlords, those are gold.
So you're building up this picture of yourself as a low-risk tenant.
You got it. And it goes beyond just what you've done in the past. It's also about how you communicate. Be clear, be respectful, be professional. If you're easy to talk to, that tells the landlord you're probably going to be responsible and easy to work with.
Yeah, nobody wants to deal with a difficult tenant.
Nobody. And the How to Negotiate Your Rent article, it actually says this: the only way a landlord will lower rent for you is if you are someone they'd really like in their property. It even specifically says to, highlight your positive history of making rental payments on time, taking good care of past apartments. Basically, show them you're someone they'd be happy to have.
All right, so we've done the research. We've shown we're good tenants. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. What are some actual tactics we can use when we're sitting down to negotiate?
Okay, here's where it gets fun. There are a few things you can do to really improve your chances. First off, timing is key. The experts all agree that it's best to negotiate well before your current lease ends, or before you need to move in.
Why is that so important?
It gives everyone more breathing room. You're not rushed. The landlord's not rushed. If you don't feel like you have to make a decision right away, you're in a stronger position.
I see. And what about, what kind of price reduction should you aim for? Should you go big or be more conservative?
You got to be realistic. Look at the research you've done. What are similar places going for? Don't go in with a ridiculously low offer that's probably just going to turn the landlord off. Find that sweet spot. A price that's fair for both of you.
Right. It's about finding common ground. Now, what about thinking outside the box? Is it always just about getting the rent lower, or are there other things you can offer?
Now you're talking. This is where you can get creative. Think about what you can bring to the table besides just the rent money. Maybe you offer to sign a longer lease. That gives the landlord stability. They don't have to worry about finding a new tenant anytime soon. Maybe you offer to pay a couple of months' rent upfront. That helps their cash flow. Or maybe you even say, hey, I'm handy. I can take care of some of the minor repairs myself.
Basic maintenance stuff that doesn't need a professional.
Exactly. The How to Negotiate Your Rent article, it even suggests things like offering to mow the lawn or do little fixes around the place if you're comfortable with that sort of thing. It's all about finding a win-win situation.
I like that approach. It's not just you versus them. You're working together. Okay, so what else should we keep in mind when we're actually negotiating?
Know your limits. Know what you can afford and what you're absolutely not willing to pay more than. Don't be afraid to walk away if you have to. And it's also a good idea to subtly let the landlord know that you're looking at other places too.
Oh, so they don't think they've got you over a barrel.
Right. One of the articles we read said if the landlord believes they're your only option, they won't feel the need to lower the rate. You don't have to be pushy about it. Just casually mention that you're considering other properties.
Gotcha. Okay, so what about when you're making that first offer? What's a good strategy?
Again, look at your research. Start a little below your ideal rent, but make sure it's reasonable. Don't throw out a crazy low number that's not going to get you anywhere. Find that balance.
Okay. And then once you've reached an agreement, what's the most important thing to do?
Get it in writing. Don't rely on just a handshake or a verbal agreement. Make sure everything, the rent price, any special deals you worked out, all the details are clearly spelled out in the lease before you sign it.
That sounds crucial. Now, we've been focusing a lot on the monthly rent, but you mentioned earlier that there are other parts of a lease that you can negotiate. Let's talk about those.
Yeah, there's more to it than just that one number. We talked about the length of the lease, how offering to sign for a longer term can sometimes get you a lower monthly rent. You can also try negotiating the security deposit, especially if you have good credit and great rental history. It's also important to clearly figure out who's responsible for what when it comes to repairs and maintenance. You don't want any surprises later on.
Right. And what about for people with pets? Are there any special considerations there?
Absolutely. Things like pet fees and restrictions, you can often negotiate those, especially if your pet is well behaved and you have records to show it. And think about the future, too. You can talk about renewal options and what might happen with the rent when it's time to renew.
So you're saying it's really important to look at the whole picture, not just focus on the rent.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get creative. Maybe you need an extra parking space or you travel a lot and want the option to sublet. The point is, there are often things you can negotiate that don't directly cost the landlord money.
That really opens up the possibilities. Now, what about if you've already signed a lease? Is there any way to renegotiate?
It can be tougher to renegotiate an existing lease, but there's one big opportunity, and that's when it's time to renew. If you've been a model tenant, always paid on time, taking care of the place, no problems, you're in a great position to ask for better terms when your lease is up.
So being a good tenant can actually pay off in the long run.
Big time. Landlords, They hate having to find new tenants. It costs them time and money. One of the articles said, if you've been a stellar renter, open up a new conversation with your landlord to negotiate rent a few months before your lease will end. You're valuable to them. They want to keep you.
That's really good to know. It shows that building a good relationship with your landlord can actually benefit you in concrete ways.
For sure. So just to recap, remember negotiating your lease. It doesn't have to be a fight. It's about being prepared, knowing what you're talking about, and showing the landlord that you're a good tenant.
Right. It's about going into that conversation with confidence and realizing that you have more power than you might think.
Exactly. And for anyone in Orange County, Riverside, San Diego, and Los Angeles, California, looking for help with their rights as a tenant, be sure to check out martinezlawcenter.com.
Don't just think about that monthly rent number. Think about everything you bring to the table as a tenant. What can you offer that might make things better for both you and the landlord? That's something to really ponder. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive today. We hope this has given you the knowledge and the confidence to tackle your next lease negotiation like a pro.
Call now 714-442-9741. Thank you.